Lila had always been the perfect student, straight A's, polite, disciplined, and determined to follow the rules. Her world revolved around textbooks, deadlines, and the quiet satisfaction of being top of her class. She never imagined that a single glance, a single encounter could shatter the careful boundaries she had built around herself. And then he appeared. Damien, the school's infamous bad boy, known for his leather jacket, reckless charm, and the kind of dangerous reputation that made teachers' blood run cold. Yet, when their eyes met for the first time in the crowded school hallway, there was an unspoken recognition, a spark that neither of them could explain. Lila felt it immediately, the thrill of danger brushing against the edges of her orderly life. Damien, for his part, had never encountered someone who intrigued him so deeply, whose very presence dared him to care, to change, to risk. Their first conversation was brief, almost accidental, yet it carried the weight of possibility. Damien's teasing smile and Lila's measured composure created a friction that neither could resist. She tried to remind herself of the rules, of her family's expectations, of the careful life she had planned, but every time he appeared, the rules blurred. His laughter was magnetic, his confidence intoxicating, and even the way he leaned against the lockers, watching her with those piercing eyes, made her pulse quicken. It was dangerous, thrilling, and forbidden, the perfect storm for a story neither had anticipated. As the days passed, their paths crossed more frequently, each interaction layering tension and curiosity. Lila found herself laughing at jokes she shouldn't, stealing glances during lectures, and feeling a pull toward him she could not deny. Damien, too, felt it, a rare vulnerability that he hid beneath his bravado, a crack in his armor only she seemed able to glimpse. Teachers scowled, classmates whispered, and the world seemed to conspire against them, yet the attraction remained undeniable. They were two forces on a collision course, bound by desire, curiosity, and the silent thrill of forbidden connection. By the end of the first week, it became clear that this was more than a passing fascination. Damien's attention was constant, deliberate, and impossible to ignore, while Lila's restraint faltered in ways she hadn't anticipated. The chemistry between them crackled with electricity, each smile, touch, or glance carrying a weight that both terrified and thrilled her. She realized, with a mix of fear and exhilaration, that her perfect, controlled life was being disrupted by a boy who represented everything she had been taught to avoid, and yet he had also become the only person who made her feel fully alive. The next few days were a whirlwind of subtle glances, stolen moments, and attention that seemed to pulse through every corner of the school. Lila tried to maintain her perfect composure, but it was becoming increasingly difficult. Every time Damien passed by, leaning casually against a locker with that reckless grin, her heart betrayed her with rapid beats and a warmth that spread from her chest to her fingertips. She told herself to focus on her studies, to ignore the thrill that accompanied his presence, yet she couldn't deny the way her mind lingered on him long after he had gone. There was a magnetic pull she had never experienced before, an invisible force that drew her into his orbit, teasing her with danger, charm, and something achingly familiar she didn't yet understand. Damien, on the other hand, was more calculated than his wild reputation suggested. Beneath the rebellious facade, he observed her carefully, noting the subtle movements of her hands when she was nervous, the way her eyes widened when caught off guard, the gentle precision in her speech that marked her intelligence and restraint. He was intrigued not only by her brilliance, but by her unwavering morality, the kind of character he had never encountered in someone so captivating. For the first time, Damien felt a vulnerability he couldn't hide, a longing to bridge the gap between his reckless world and the disciplined, ordered life Lila inhabited. And yet, he knew the risks, the whispers of classmates, the disapproval of teachers, the consequences of crossing the boundaries society had drawn for them. But the temptation was irresistible, and he found himself drawn to her, against reason, against caution. The tension between them became a game of subtle gestures and hidden messages. Damien would leave notes slipped into her locker, teasing yet sincere, prompting laughter and blushes she tried desperately to conceal. Leela, careful not to break the rules she had lived by, responded with equal delicacy. Brief smiles, fleeting glances, small acts of kindness that spoke volumes without uttering a single word. Each encounter deepened the connection, layering desire with risk, curiosity with restraint, creating an intricate dance that neither could resist. The hallways, classrooms, and library became stages for this silent, forbidden romance, charged with electric anticipation at every turn. One afternoon, their paths converged in the library after school. Leela was bent over a stack of books, pretending to focus, while Damien approached, leaning casually against the doorframe. "You're too serious all the time," he murmured, voice low and teasing. Leela looked up, startled, cheeks flushing. "And you're too distracting," she replied, trying to sound composed despite the rapid beat of her heart. The corner of his mouth lifted into a half-smile, half-challenge, as if acknowledging her cleverness while daring her to cross the invisible line that separated them. That moment, suspended in time, carried a weight neither had anticipated, a mix of danger, excitement, and a connection that neither could fully articulate. As days turned into weeks, whispers began to circulate among classmates. Rumors of a possible connection between Damien, the notorious bad boy, and Leela, the perfect student, swirled through the school halls. The scrutiny, rather than deterring them, only heightened their awareness of each other. Every laugh shared, every accidental touch, every glance from across the classroom carried layers of meaning, as if their very hearts were conspiring against the world that sought to keep them apart. Fear mingled with exhilaration, caution with temptation, creating a heady mix that neither could resist. The following week, the tension between Damien and Leela reached new heights as the pressures of school, family, and peer expectations began to weigh heavily on them. Leela had always been disciplined, prioritizing her grades and reputation above all else. Yet Damien's presence in her life challenged her in ways she could never have anticipated. Every stolen glance, every teasing remark, and every unspoken connection forced her to confront feelings she had carefully kept in check. She found herself daydreaming in class, tracing invisible patterns in the air with her finger, only to catch herself as Damien's mischievous grin flashed across her mind. The thrill of forbidden attraction was intoxicating, and yet it carried with it the weight of potential scandal, the judgment of her peers, and the fear of disappointing the expectations she had built her life around. Damien, for his part, was equally ensnared in this web of emotions. The reckless facade he displayed for teachers and classmates masked a deep and unexpected vulnerability. He found himself caring more than he wanted, analyzing every word Leela spoke, every expression she allowed to slip past her careful defenses. For a boy who had lived his life on the edge, who had been defined by detachment and rebellion, this burgeoning affection was both exhilarating and terrifying. He was drawn to her strength, intelligence, and integrity, qualities that highlighted his own flaws and insecurities, and he knew that any misstep could ruin the delicate balance of their secret connection. The first real challenge came during a school project that paired them together. Confined to the library for hours, they struggled to maintain focus as playful arguments, accidental touches, and lingering eye contact threatened to overwhelm their professionalism. Leela tried to remain composed, reminding herself that Damien's charm was dangerous, but the electricity in the air made concentration nearly impossible. Every laugh, every shared joke, every brush of fingers as they passed notes sent shivers down her spine. Damien, aware of the effect he had on her, fought to restrain his own impulses, masking desire behind sarcasm and teasing, while secretly longing to close the distance between them. The tension was palpable, a living thing that grew with each passing minute, making it clear that neither could ignore the feelings blossoming between them. Meanwhile, whispers among classmates began to grow louder, rumors threatening to expose what neither of them was ready to admit. Teachers, oblivious yet suspicious, kept a watchful eye, adding layers of pressure and restraint. The risk of being discovered heightened every interaction, transforming every shared glance or accidental touch into a thrill charged with danger. Leela felt a mixture of fear and exhilaration, the kind that only arises when love is forbidden and desire undeniable. Damien, sensing her inner conflict, found himself wanting to protect her, to reassure her, yet he also knew that pushing too far could provoke backlash, judgment, or heartbreak. The stakes were higher than either had anticipated, and every interaction became a test of restraint, courage, and the unspoken bond that grew stronger with each secret moment. By midweek, Damien's protective instincts became more pronounced. He intercepted a group of students who had been spreading rumors, subtly intimidating them with a presence that radiated danger. Leela, initially embarrassed by the attention, realized that his actions, though silent, were meant to shield her. In that moment, she understood that Damien's feelings were genuine, deeper than teasing or infatuation. Yet the realization terrified her, as it forced her to confront the complexity of her own emotions. She was drawn to him, fascinated by his boldness and vulnerability alike, and yet aware that their worlds were not meant to intersect. Every choice carried consequences, and the fragile balance of secrecy made their connection all the more intoxicating. The tension between Damien and Leela reached a breaking point that week, as every stolen glance, subtle touch, and lingering conversation became more charged, more impossible to ignore. The school, usually a structured environment of rules and schedules, felt like a stage for their private forbidden world, one where the risk of exposure only made every moment between them more intoxicating. Leela struggled to maintain the facade of the disciplined top student while feeling the pull toward Damien, whose very presence made her pulse race and her carefully constructed boundaries begin to crumble. Every casual brush of his hand, every teasing comment, and every smirk filled her chest with warmth and anxiety all at once, a dangerous cocktail of emotions she could neither fully control nor resist. Damien, ever aware of the whispers and prying eyes of classmates, felt the pressure mounting as well. His bad boy persona had always served as armor, but with Leela, it was vulnerable and raw. He watched her intently during classes, noting the way she tucked stray strands of hair behind her ear, the quiet way she corrected a classmate with gentle authority, and the subtle blush that colored her cheeks whenever he caught her gaze. His admiration for her brilliance and integrity mingled with desire and protectiveness, creating an inner conflict he had never experienced before. He knew the stakes, the social scrutiny, the consequences if they were caught, the peril of losing control, yet each risk seemed worth it for the brief moments he could share with her. One afternoon, a particularly daring moment of intimacy escalated their connection. While working on a group project, Damien brushed Leela's hand as they passed notes back and forth. The electricity of that simple touch sent shivers through both of them, leaving their hearts pounding and their thoughts spiraling. Leela's careful composure faltered, and Damien's teasing grin belied the intensity of his own emotions. That fleeting touch was enough to ignite a fire neither could ignore, signaling a shift from curiosity to something far deeper, the beginnings of love, undeniable and forbidden. The thrill of secrecy made every gesture heavier, more meaningful, and more dangerous, as both realized that the consequences of discovery could alter their lives irreversibly. As rumors about their connection intensified, Leela's friends began to notice the subtle changes in her behavior, the distracted gaze, the soft smiles when Damien was near, and the new intensity in her otherwise disciplined demeanor. Damien's reputation, already notorious, only fueled gossip and speculation, making their secret moments all the more precious. The risk of exposure heightened the stakes, transforming even brief conversations into clandestine events filled with hidden meaning and longing. Each meeting, each look became a high-stakes dance, balancing desire against danger, passion against caution, and affection against the rules that governed their lives. In the midst of this emotional storm, a school dance approached, an event both anticipated and dreaded. Damien and Leela's hearts raced at the thought of being in the same space, surrounded by peers who might judge, gossip, or expose them. The very anticipation intensified their feelings, as secrecy and proximity heightened their awareness of one another. The air between them seemed to shiver with unspoken promises, forbidden attraction, and a mutual understanding that the dance could be both a haven and a minefield. Every glance, every subtle touch, every shared breath at that event would carry weight, threading danger and desire into a delicate, intoxicating tapestry of emotion. The days following the school dance were a whirlwind of heightened emotions and subtle challenges that neither Damien nor Leela could ignore. The fleeting moments of connection they had shared at the event lingered in their minds, making every glance in the hallway feel charged with meaning. Leela found herself caught between the comfort of rules she had always followed and the irresistible pull of Damien's world, a world full of risk, excitement, and desire. Every interaction became a careful balancing act, a smile here, a casual brush of fingers there, each gesture layered with unspoken longing and dangerous implications. The thrill of secrecy made their connection feel alive, magnetic, and intoxicating, as if the forbidden nature of their attraction amplified every heartbeat and every glance. Damien, for his part, struggled to reconcile his reputation with the emotions Leela evoked in him. He had spent years cultivating an image of rebellion, detachment, and fearlessness, yet with her, the walls he had built began to crumble. Every shared laugh, every stolen moment of intimacy, every brief touch ignited a storm of desire he could neither fully control nor resist. He became acutely aware of the danger that their relationship posed, the whispers of classmates, the scrutiny of teachers, the judgment of families, and yet he found himself drawn to her with an intensity that eclipsed any concern for consequences. Protecting her became a silent priority, a personal mission that blurred the line between duty and emotion, attraction and obsession. The first true test of their secret love came when a misunderstanding threatened to expose them. A classmate, curious about the sparks between them, began spreading rumors, questioning every glance and interaction. Leela, already anxious about the precarious nature of their relationship, felt panic rise in her chest. She avoided Damien in the hallways, fearing that any slip would confirm suspicions and place their forbidden connection in jeopardy. Damien, sensing her withdrawal, confronted her privately, his voice low but edged with concern. "You can't hide from this," he said, his piercing gaze holding hers. "We can't control what others think, but we can control what we do, and I won't let them take this away from us." His words, firm yet vulnerable, sent a shiver down her spine, stirring both reassurance and a new, deeper fear. In the ensuing days, the tension escalated as Damien and Leela navigated the delicate balance of secrecy and desire. Their stolen moments became more daring, whispered conversations behind closed doors, fleeting touches in empty corridors, shared lunches away from prying eyes, each act deepening their bond while simultaneously amplifying the risk. Leela struggled with the intensity of her emotions, torn between the need to protect her reputation and the overwhelming desire to be near him. Damien, equally conflicted, found himself both exhilarated and tormented by his feelings, caught between longing and caution, attraction and the fear of consequences. By midweek, the stakes reached a new level when they were assigned to a joint project for a major class presentation. Forced to spend hours together outside of school, their interactions became more intimate and emotionally charged. Every touch, glance, and whispered word carried weight, intensifying the forbidden nature of their relationship. Leela realized she could no longer deny her feelings. Damien had become not just a thrill, but a necessity, a source of excitement, comfort, and danger all at once. Damien, equally aware of the deepening connection, wrestled with his growing attachment, knowing that crossing any line could change everything, yet unable to resist the magnetic pull between them. The final days of the semester arrived with a mix of anticipation and tension that seemed to electrify every corner of the school. Leela and Damien had navigated whispers, stolen moments, and mounting pressure, yet the forbidden nature of their love had only intensified their connection. The threat of exposure lingered like a shadow, making every glance, every touch, every shared breath feel charged with urgency. Damien, who had once been untouchable and fearless, now found himself consumed by a desire to protect Leela, to claim the rare intimacy they shared, and yet to maintain the secrecy that had kept their hearts safe from judgment. Leela, equally aware of the consequences, felt her careful defenses crumble under the weight of her emotions, understanding that the depth of her feelings for him was undeniable, irresistible, and life-changing. The ultimate test came during the school's final group project presentation, where both of them were forced to interact in front of peers and teachers. The tension was palpable as classmates watched their subtle exchanges, oblivious to the silent intensity simmering beneath every gesture. Damien, sensing her nervousness, leaned close and whispered a few words of reassurance, words that sent a jolt of warmth through Leela and strengthened her resolve. Their eyes met across the crowded room, a fleeting connection that spoke volumes without a single word. In that moment, the world around them disappeared, leaving only the electricity between them, the forbidden pull of their hearts, and the knowledge that no obstacle could sever what had grown too strong, too vital, too irresistible. After the presentation, they found a quiet corridor away from prying eyes. Damien, ever protective yet daring, reached for Leela's hand, their fingers interlocking in a tentative yet determined grasp. "We've come too far to hide anymore," he murmured, voice low and charged with emotion. Leela's heart raced and she nodded, feeling a rush of fear, excitement, and exhilaration all at once. She had feared exposure, consequences, and judgment, yet in that moment, the pull of love, forbidden, intoxicating, and utterly consuming, eclipsed every concern. Damien's eyes searched hers, seeking permission, understanding, and connection, and she gave it willingly, embracing the risk and the reward in equal measure. The following weeks became a delicate balance of openness and secrecy. Though whispers among classmates persisted, Damien and Leela's bond had hardened into something unbreakable, a connection forged in tension, vulnerability, and undeniable desire. Every interaction, from casual glances in the hall to shared study sessions, carried depth and intensity. They learned to navigate their worlds together, embracing the thrill of a love that was both forbidden and transformative. Leela discovered strength in her vulnerability, courage in her choices, and exhilaration in the passionate connection she shared with Damien. Damien, in turn, found that his rebellious exterior masked a heart capable of devotion, tenderness, and fierce loyalty to the one person who had touched him so profoundly. Their story reached a moment of quiet triumph one late afternoon when they sat together on the school rooftop watching the sun set over the city skyline. The golden light bathed them in warmth, the wind carried the scent of possibility, and for the first time they felt free, not from rules or expectations, but from fear, doubt, and hesitation. Damien brushed a strand of hair from Leela's face, his gaze lingering on her with a tenderness that made her chest ache. "We've risked everything for this," he said softly, "but I wouldn't change a thing. You're worth every challenge, every danger, every whisper of gossip." Leela smiled, tears threatening, and leaned closer, knowing that in his arms she had found not only excitement and passion, but safety, trust, and a love that defied every rule she had ever known. As twilight descended, they stood together on the rooftop, hand in hand, hearts entwined and minds aligned. Their forbidden love, once a source of fear and tension, had transformed into a bond that neither gossip, expectation, nor consequence could sever. Damien and Leela had discovered that true love was not merely about following rules, but about embracing risk, vulnerability, and the courage to defy a world that sought to keep them apart. And as the city lights flickered below and stars appeared above, they knew with certainty that their story, dangerous, forbidden, and exhilarating, was only beginning, a tale of passion, trust, and unwavering devotion that would endure beyond every obstacle life could place before them.